Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead.
And not all the things they've heard will be positive. Some, you may get, when you get down the line a little, an industry expert and said, I was very impressed with your board, or except your CFO. Because they were involved in whatever. Being an unindicted co-conspirator just means you had a better lawyer. We don't want anybody that was, in other words, they got in trouble, they got arrested, they got indicted, but they got off. That's fine for somebody else, not for us. So, but one of the questions in your script, when you're talking to these people is, by the way, sir or ma'am, is there anything in your background, anything that would preclude us from getting a financing down the road? So have you been involved in any dirt? That's, the second part you're not saying. That either may not have stuck because you're like Teflon, but involved in it. And after Anderson went down and other firms have gone down, there's a lot of guys that weren't directly involved with Enron in that scam, but were indirectly involved, and they were dead meat. You can't use those. Now, 25 years have passed, maybe they can, but I still stay away from them. I still stay away from them. And if they ask you, how recent? Next. Because they seem to think 25 years or 20 years is kind of it's nothing. If it's 40 years ago, it's still on the record. And I get emails quite often. Oh, Dan, I really found this. Actually, you go to Kim because I really like this person. He's really good. Blah, 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 blah. No, the answer is no. Okay. You're not there to like these people. And they're not there to like you. The more opposite of you they are, the better off you're going to be. And that's why no current lawyers, no current friends, no current cousins, brother, nobody. These are all new, fresh meat. All new, fresh meat. Now, I only made one exception to this. A number of years ago, we had a guy, had a really funny name. Is a Nigerian kid. He was an aerospace engineer from, a big MIT, a rocket science kind of guy. And I happened to see the news. Energy minister, Nigerian, same last name as my kid. Was it like Smith? A lot of Smiths. And so on his weekly report, I was getting weekly reports then, I said, and he had a goofy first name, so I just called him, I forget what I call him. And I says, is this guy any relation to you? He's my uncle. And what's your dad, the president? No, he used to be. They bought the deals and revived me, And I said, you're forgetting healthcare. You are now in energy. Forget all that shit I told you, but you told me no relatives. Well, I'll make an exception to the rule because I know, and he's over there, he's building a big energy conglomerate, hopefully legitimately, because there's a lot of corruption in Nigeria. Yeah. No, my father used to be president. I said, oh, what a coincidence. There's certain exceptions to the rules. But so if you have any relations like that, ask me and I'll probably say it's okay. Okay, so now you've got a CEO and everybody on the group, from the chairman to the CEO, you want them to have had transaction experience, meaning doing deals. And so they say, how many deals? Well, at least, 20, 30, 40 deals. Now, you're going to find some people that have been in hundreds of deals. That's good. Hundreds of deals. So now you've got a CEO. Now, one of the questions I'm normally asked is, do any of these people have to be doctors, healthcare? Well, when you're buying hospitals and stuff like that, or buying dental practices or physician practices, yeah. But for the lower end of home health, no. You might have a doctor, and occasionally you'll have a guy from one of the big four accounting firms who was a doctor, then he became a chartered accountant. But normally the answer is no. They won't be doctors. It looks good if you have a physician. Or as I call recovering physician, they're not practicing medicine anymore. And they'll be very careful because they don't want to mislead you. There's something in the Hippocratic Oath, there's some bullshit that they want. I don't practice medicine anymore, Mr. Peña. Okay. And normally I make a joke with, who did you kill? But they don't think that's that funny, so I don't use it anymore. But anyway, okay, so now you've got the CEO person. What age group? Our demographics for our board is 55 to 70, more or less. Occasionally a little younger, occasionally even older. I got a good buddy who's 85 on one of my boards. Actually, the smartest guy on the fucking board. I wish the rest of the younger guys were half as smart as he is. But normally it's 55 to 70, 72, 73, something like that. And people are working longer now because it takes more to retire now, okay? Which opens up Pandora's box for us even wider because we get more response from LinkedIn. So now you ask him about the profile. You go meet him. If I can be of service, add value, Mr. Peña, subject to conflict, I'm interested. And then, sir, is there anything in your background that could preclude us getting finance down the road? You can also say finance and or certification. Because there's other things you got to be certified for that's got nothing to do with finance. So you don't want to give them any way out to not answer your question 100%. So finance and certification. And that covers the gamut of what they could possibly keep us from getting. So now you ask for their profile and you add it. And so now, by the time you get to the CFO, I mean, you've got at least probably 100 years of experience. You've probably got, 200-300 transactions. You want the transactions to add up into the billions. And so now it's no different, but now you want another accountant. Why do you want another accountant when your CFO is almost always going to be an accountant, Dan? Because you want somebody, second set of eyes to look at the numbers. Because I have seen mistakes in my long 50-year career. Not on purpose, but it doesn't make a difference whether it was on purpose or by accident. Still a goddamn mistake. So we want another, and normally it's another person from a big four accounting firm. And normally they're consultants, and then you want a lawyer on the board. You do the same MO, modus operandi, and you add there, and then you want a lawyer on the board. Why do you want a lawyer on the board? Well, the lawyers on the board is to keep your lawyers honest. Because we haven't got to success fees yet. We haven't got to no budget fees. But when they find out that you're not paying for the fees go like this. Like one of Elon Musk's rockets. So you want a lawyer there, an experienced lawyer, that knows how to make sure that they don't go like that. You also use your CFO and your accountant on the board to slap the accounting fees. Make sure they don't go get crazy. They don't get crazy. Now, all the big accounting firms and all the big law firms have development budgets. Money that they've been allocated in the big budget of the big company to create new business. So they all do success fees, which I'll get to in a minute. So when they tell you we don't do that, there's two answers. Number one, I know that you do business for KKR, with KKR. I know you do business with Blackstone. These are two big private equity firms. Private equity firms don't pay fees up front. All fees from private equity are success fee based. So if they do business with KKR or Blackstone or whoever, it's because they don't like you you didn't practice your goddamn templates right, or there's somebody on the board they don't like. Now, this is difficult to get because they're not going to share information that they had a bad experience with your CEO. They're not going to share that your CFO ostensibly fucked them 8 years ago. They won't. That's very difficult because there's all kinds of slander and all kinds of rules, especially here in the UK. They're tight-lipped. But you like to deal with it. But now, is there, off the record, as they say in this country, you want to have a quiet word with them. I didn't know what that meant the first time I heard it. They have a quiet word, a cup of coffee. Is there somebody on the board or something I should know? And if they like you, they trust you, they'll tell you. Or they might say, well, how much have you looked into the background of your chief financial officer? Woo! That's a red flag, straight to the fucking moon. Okay? But they can convince themselves they didn't do anything wrong. And then you say, thank you very much. And but the Brits do it softer. They still cut your throat at the end of the day, but they just do it a little panache. And so then you go back and look. And normally when that happens, it's because 36 years ago, I didn't think that was within the time frame. I got in trouble, blah, 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 blah. I was cleared. Next. Everybody, you're going to be the dirtiest person on the board. Everybody's got to be clean as new linen sheets. We're going to get around you because there's some people, at least one person in this room, that won't qualify to be on these boards. I've got double murderers through, convicted felons. I will not be involved with pedophiles, so I've never done that. But if I can get a double murderer through, I should be able to get even this group through. So now you've got the lawyer and the profiles. Yes, sir.
Just to confirm, the lawyer...
I've never got a Serbian through, though.
It's the first time for everything, sir. These are called your in-house lawyer and your in-house accountant. And then your out-house...
Is the law firm.
Law firm and the accounting firm.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So now it's not the trickiest, but the industry experts, it's like, I listen to these talk shows on the telly, and when I first came here, I didn't know what the telly meant, but on the telly, and 99% of the time, I know more about finance, healthcare, global warming, than all these guys, the talking heads. I love to say, and I'm invited to be on many panels. And then once they find out my background, then I get uninvited because there's been 11 expeditions to the North and South Pole, 11. 10 are dead, and Sally and I are alive. Nobody else has been to both poles, expedition like we have. All these guys flapping their fucking lips are just flapping their fucking lips. It's like you trying to, I don't know if the guys still, well, now they do online. But in the old days, when you go to a bar, the chatter up, is that still, you still say that, chatter up? Talk to her, try to get in your panties, okay? You got a line of shit, right? And you've learned a line of shit that works, right? Well, these guys that are talking heads, they've never done any of this. They've never been there. They don't know shit, okay? And so the industry experts fall into that category. So, and it's in the on the thumb drive. There's questions you want to know. Okay, I was part of and a couple of you were part of a $3 billion deal. Well, if I was recruiting you, okay, who did you report to on that deal? How many direct reports did you have on that deal? In other words, how many people you had under you in that deal? Okay. When did the deal start? When did the deal end? Who wrote the professional opinions? Were you part? And there's a bunch of questions to find out if they really did anything. other than they were the guy that got the coffee for 11 months, or the gal that went to get the coffee. So there's industry experts and then there's industry experts. So, but you want somebody that has actually been engaged. Former government officials, our guy that's on our healthcare board in Germany, who's from Manchester, used to be a big wig with NHS and still is, got a consulting thing with NHS in the very part of the vertical that we're in. So he has a lot of knowledge. But you want 2 industry experts, too. Because now, not all of these people that we've just mentioned, but some of these people are going to go to the site and kick the tires with you and do the due diligence. Because in theory, you don't know anything. So after you've gone to 4 or 5 of these acquisition candidates and see the kind of questions they ask, you're normally going to take your CFO and one of your industry experts, and you're going to get somebody on your board that's an old warhorse that likes to go out in the field. That's normally not the chairman, because normally the chairman's the oldest, but you don't want to wear the warhorses out, because you could very well make 100 or 200 or 300 acquisitions. And while they're all full of piss and vinegar the first 20 or 30, they won't be full of piss and vinegar when you get to number 80 and 90. Which brings up an absolutely important point. These boards of directors are all in transition. You're not going to have the same board when you're making the first $50 million or euros or pounds acquisition as the 500 millionth. It's just some of them will want to exit. A 71-year-old industry expert, it might be good for 5 or 10 or 15 kicking the tires, going to the acquisition side, but he's not going to want to be there for 80 or 90. So some of these guys are going to come to you and say, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Founder, I'd like to exit now. And you will have in your articles of incorporation and all the paperwork, push-pull agreements, or you're going to buy them out. You'll already agree on some kind of formula, yada, yada, yada. But it will be based on the current value of the company. And most of the push-pulls aren't based on enterprise value. Enterprise value is the smoke and mirror value that if everything happened perfectly, the push-pull agreements are going to be based on book value or EBITDA, some multiple of EBITDA. So they will be in transition, not transition like Josh Kim's 25, but I had the same board for 10 years. One death, that's it. So you want longevity. But so the current board won't want to kick tires. When you get to be a $300 or $400 million company, you will have an M&A team in the company. So that workload will transition from the board when you got nothing. You got a song and a dance and that's it. After you've made 20, 30, 40, 50 acquisitions and you've got several $100 million in assets or pounds in assets, you will have an M&A team. You will, or you will direct KPMG or PwC to do all the due diligence work. But now you got money. Before you got nothing. Okay, so you're making do with the board members. And one of the questions the board members will ask, in addition, I can add value, yada, yada. How much time do you, in this country, envisage that this will take on a monthly basis? In America and other parts of the world, they're not as time-oriented. But in this country, honest answer in the beginning, 5, maximum 10 hours a month. And that's the honest answer in the beginning. But once we get rolling, it could be 20 hours a month. And some of the guys, we've got a CFO on one of the other deals, and he says, I'd be sitting at home. I can only bounce my grandkids so much on my knee before they piss on me. And I can only play so much tennis, and I'll be home fighting with my wife. So he says, you've resurrected me. He tells the you in the deal. But don't wear them out. Don't wear them out. Because the flesh is willing, the spirit is willing, the flesh can be weak. Now, I used to ask, I don't ask anymore, is there anything reference your health that I should be concerned about. And that's really foreboding now. You're not supposed to answer. Just like, are you going to have kids? When? Have you been cut? This is the kind of question I used to ask. Nobody ever said anything to me. But now, and it depends how charming you think you are, and I'm pretty fucking charming, but I don't ask the question. But I do very little interviewing now, okay? Because I couldn't keep my mouth shut, you know? You're a pretty young girl. I mean, when are you going to have a kid? Now, on the one hand, I'm a pretty young girl, but it's none of your fucking business when I'm going to have a kid. So you can't talk like that. But I'm one of the last dinosaurs. So, I mean, you guys, I'm sure, know better than that. Yes, sir. And I haven't forgotten you.
Do all the board members need M&A experience if you're CFO?
Yep, everybody. They don't all call it M&A experience because there's an M&A society kind of thing, but I mean transaction experience. Okay, mergers and acquisitions. A lot of guys have bought companies, but they never merged anything. And here in the UK, they're very careful. They don't want to mislead you. And blah, blah, blah. So, transaction experience. And but I mean, there's a plethora of guys and gals all over the world. The big firms, 18 months before you're going to retire, they normally say, we're going to give you a lessened load. You have to bill less hours to feather your nest and get directorships outside. They don't say it exactly like that, but that's what they mean. Okay? You're going to get paid the same money for less work. And of course, what you do with extra time, and you go out and you look for directorships. You look for directorships, and it's not unusual for a guy retiring from BP to add 3 to 5 directorships for between 150 and 250,000 pounds in this country per, which is about twice as much or 3 times as much money as he's making from being a director at his regular firm. And so that's when you want to hit him. Okay, and when you read association, the Chartered Accountant Association, they talk about we have 85 members retiring in 2023. Now's the time to talk to them. Now's the time to talk to them. Okay, we have the head of the medical school at the University of Manchester leaving in 2020. Now's the time to talk to them. And we can legitimately. I mean, we've had some big exits. We've had the QLA model is the model that did the biggest healthcare deal in the history of Europe. 4 seasons. That was our deal, my deal. And we did it in 1999. We did a private to public, public to private, and it's gone bust 3 times, gone through reorganization at least 3 times that I'm aware of. But that was the biggest deal. We did Columbia Healthcare, the biggest healthcare deal in the history of the world. NEOM, I mean, we've got a lot of positive publicity. We have a guy in the 90s who took down an insurance company, which everybody's forgotten about, even the name. So I don't mention the name anymore. In 95-ish, took down a little bank and an insurance company. But we've had people, steal from the banks, like I've told you. But most of that was before internet. So by the grace of Allah, and if it's not on the internet, nobody's hardly ever going to go look because they're too lazy. They're not going to the archives of the library. Yes, sir, you had a question.
My point was just about managing the board like a portfolio, taking people out as the company grows.
Absolutely same. It's exactly the same. Because, but the good board members will understand the Peter principle, that they've risen to the level of their incompetence. Okay, the kids don't understand that. Well, why are you getting rid of me? You're way past your threshold. I mean, you don't know what the fuck you're doing anymore, and you're causing other people to do stuff that they shouldn't do. What are we going to call you? Okay, normally it's founding principle. That's what we call the U in the deal. Remember, you don't get don't mind getting paid last as long as you get paid most. And roughly speaking, you'll have between 60 and 65%. Now we've had, it's almost impossible for you to go below 50% if you follow the steps. We've had that many people in almost 30 years that somehow fucked themselves out of control. And that's normally if the lawyer sides in, your inside lawyer. For example, just 2 years ago, we had a guy on the High Street, right near the Ritz on Piccadilly. He walks by, the U in the deal, walks by his chairman, CFO, and CEO are sitting in Starbucks having a coffee. He doesn't know about it. He just kept walking down the street with his tail between his legs. We're going to show you some horror stories where they get companies taken away from them. A guy went on a 6-week cruise. He comes back. The name of the building had been changed. Yes, sir. Okay. We had enough time? Okay.